And on behalf of the General Board of Church and Society, I'd like to welcome you to the United Methodist Building. It is a joy and pleasure to be here with you to stand with and for voting rights. We, as United Methodists, have long stood for free and fair elections as a basic human right. Generations of advocates fought with their blood, sweat, and tears to expand the right to vote beyond the original electorate of landowning white men. And despite constitutional guarantees, this right to vote continues to be under attack by ever-shifting tactics that suppress voter turnout and disenfranchise communities of color. A fair and inclusive democracy is about dignity for all. It's about recognizing the freedom of the people to direct their future. Casting a ballot is an act of faith, a prayer intended for the common good. Common sense reforms that modernize voter registration, provide for transparency in financing campaigns, and uphold ethics provisions build up trust and hope in our communities. We are grateful for your witness as we call for Congress to stand with the people by passing For the People Act. Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse. My name is Melanie Campbell. I'm President and CEO of the National Coalition on Black Civic Participation and convener of the Black Women's Roundtable. And it is my honor and privilege to be here with you all today and all of my sister and brother warriors in the movement. We are here today to culminate a week of what we call the Black Women and Allies Voting Rights Call to Action Week. This is the final activity for the week. Throughout this week, started on Monday with a social media day, where we took over Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok with hashtags like Black Women Take Action, Freedom to Vote, Protect Our Vote. We hosted a powerful virtual town hall meeting with some of the sisters you will hear today who are in the movement, fighting every day, not just for our voting rights, but for all of our rights, and especially social justice and labor and so much more. So why are we here? We're here because several weeks ago in the U.S. Senate, there were 10 Republicans who decided that they didn't have time to have a discussion, let alone debate, about voting rights. And for many of us, that was the line crossed to tell us, especially African Americans and other people of color who have always had to fight for our rights, especially our voting rights, that you don't take us seriously. That somehow you think that we're going to allow 10 people, 2 people, to stop the fact that we have a right to our voting rights in this country. The voter suppression taking place across this country, we all know about. So we know why we're here for that. But today we're here to say that we are not going back to the 1940s, not just the 1960s. For African Americans, we have blood, sweat, and tears is how we got that precious right to vote. So we thank the United Methodist Building for being a movement partner, for the National Council of Churches for being a movement partner. I have much more to say, but we're going to move this conversation right along. So I want to ask my partner in this, Dr. Janetta Betch-Cole, who could not physically be here, but technology is wonderful. We have her on the line down in Jacksonville, Florida, and she will bring remarks, and following her, we will have inspiration from my sister, Reverend Leslie Dwight, National Programs and Outreach Manager for the National Coalition, and Bishop Leah Daughtry, co-convener for Power Rising. And then I will bring up my sister Cleola Brown, from the President and CEO of the A. Philip Randolph Institute, who will help me move this press conference along and this speak out today. So let me get Dr. Cole. Looks like she fell off. Let me get her. Oh, you're there. Okay, that's me. Dr. Cole, Dr. Janetta Betch-Cole, Chair of the Board, President of the National Council of Negro Women. Dr. Cole, I turn it over to you. Thank you, Dr. Cole. And I now turn it over to our co-moderator, Cleola Brown, National President, Eighth of Atlantic Institute, who will bring her remarks and then bring on Reverend Leslie Dwight and Bishop Leah Daughtry to provide us with inspiration.
Thank you, our sister Melanie Campbell, the leader beyond comparison. Okay, there's something happening that they want to adjust. Is that better for you? Thank you. Well, sign language is a wonderful thing. First of all, I want to say thank you to our sister Melanie Campbell, who convenes us all in the time of trouble and stress. And all it takes is one phone call and her saying it's urgent. The time is now and enough is enough. This afternoon, folks are looking and wondering why we're standing out here in the hot sun, because it is hot times. And we must stand whenever someone tries to push us down. But before we do any action, we understand where our strength and our courage comes from. It comes from those who bring us closer to God, who remind us of the right thing to do, and who leads us in the direction where we must be led in order to bring about what is best for all. I want to start by bringing Reverend Leslie Dwight, National Programs and Outreach Manager for NCBCP, to the mic, and she will be followed by one of the renowned national leaders in this country to also bring us prayer. Let's start with Leslie Dwight. Reverend.
Thank you, Sister Brown. So good afternoon, everyone. I am so privileged and so honored to have the awesome task of kicking this event off with our inspiration. And the more that I thought about it, the more I was inspired, because the truth of the matter is you all bring the inspiration. The fact that you showed up here in the scorching heat to amplify our message is the inspiration. You guys showed up to do what was uncomfortable but necessary for our people. And when I look out here today and when I see your faces, I'm reminded of another freedom fighter today. I'm reminded of a freedom fighter by the name of Deborah, who showed up and she showed out. You can find her in the book of Judges, in the Old Testament of the Bible. And like many, she was more than the title that she bore. She was a judge by occupation, a prophet by calling, and a warrior by the discomfort of societal discourse. Watching her people suffer physically, spiritually, and economically for more than 20 years is what compelled her to show up and show out. She was a woman who heard from God herself. She was a woman who led in the face of others who understood the charge but were too coward to move it forward. She was a woman who led in the face of all the isms that said that and moved forward when she wasn't even supposed to be operating in her lane. She led putting all her skin in the game in the face of opposition when her opposition seemed to be more powerful than she. But all she needed was a word from God. She showed up and she showed out. The Bible says that she not only came to victory at the end of that story, but her people found liberation for more than 40 years. I came to tell you today that it's not just enough that you show up, but you need to show out. I came to declare today a Deborah anointing on your life, an anointing that causes you to move in the midst of opposition and allows you to keep on keeping on, and a Deborah anointing that allows you to keep on fighting, an anointing that activates the gifts that are lying within you, and activating the gifts that propel you to move forward, that propel you to move upward, that propel you to move forward in faith, an anointing that won't let you be silent when you want to, an anointing that makes you speak truth to power and allows you to be the voice to the voiceless that God is calling you to be, an anointing that lets you be steadfast and unmovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord. You understand that the work that we're here for today is the work of the Lord. I want you to carry the Deborah anointing with you until the hand of God brings you victory. Show up and show out.
All right, sister, thank you so much. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Leah Daughtry. I am the presiding prelate of the House of the Lord Churches, and I am co-convener of Power Rising, a gathering place by, for, and about Black women. From the time of our nation's founding, and over 189 years, our nation has worked to expand the principles of our Constitution to include all of us. The laws had to be changed. The passages had to be rewritten in order to include young people, to include women, to include Black people, to include the disabled, to include LGBT family members. The laws had to be rewritten. It took nearly 200 years for all of us to be included. And now we stand here, some 50-odd years after Black people were finally included in the nation's founding documents. And we are faced with the possibility that the rights that we have been promised are being stripped away. The rights that we have been promised in our documents are now being turned back in practice. And yes, they can say, you still have the right to vote, but in practice, it's harder, it's more difficult, and it's intended to take away our right to full participation in this democracy. So we come today as men and women of faith, as men and women of values, to declare our righteous indignation with the actions that are happening across our country, not just in the United States Senate, but in the 17 states that are passing draconian laws to turn back our rights. We come in righteous indignation with our eyes on the prize. We understand that equal access, while it is guaranteed, is now being stripped away through limited poll boxes. We understand that the poll tax is being renamed voter identification. We understand what they are doing. We've seen this before. I am the first generation in my family born with the right to vote. We've only had the right to vote about 50 some odd years, so I'm not interested for myself, for my family, for my nephews, in seeing these rights stripped back. But if I have to fight, I'm ready for the battle. We are here with our righteous indignation to insist that our laws include all the people, regardless of race, regardless of sex, regardless of gender identity, regardless of sexual orientation, regardless of bodily ability. We insist that our nation's laws include all of us. We insist in righteous indignation. We call upon the Congress. We call upon the state legislators. We call particularly on the Senate to do their jobs, to protect the freedoms we have been guaranteed in our Constitution and for which our nation stands. We call upon them to enforce the laws that will ensure all of us participate in this democracy, because we can't call ourselves a democracy and fight for democracy around the world when we won't fight for democracy right here at home. We can't insist on democracy around the world when we won't allow people to vote right in our borders. We can't call ourselves a democracy if all the people cannot participate. We come in righteous indignation in the name of our God, the one who rides for the least, the last, and the lost, the one who rides for the left out, the locked out, and the left behind, the one who stands for freedom, the one whose name is justice. We will not be denied. We will not be delayed. We will not be deterred. Know this: we can't stop and we won't stop. Yes. We're mad, and I'm telling all my people, I know we're mad. We tired of fighting. I'm tired of wearing battle fatigue. I'm tired of having to insist on my rights for clean water and clean air and good schools and safe streets. I'm tired and I'm mad. But you know what? I'm mad and I'm going to fight. I'm mad and I'm going to vote. I'm mad and I'm going to march. I'm mad and I'm going to protest. I'm mad and I'm going to show up. I'm mad and I'm going to stand up. I'm mad and I'm going to do everything I have to do to ensure that the promise of America is made the practice of America.
Amen. Amen.
Thank you, Bishop. Thank you, Bishop. Thank you, Bishop Leah Daughtry and Reverend Leslie DeWhite. We thank you so very much. Next, we will hear from the Texas delegation. Say all roads to voting rights are coming up from the South and the Southwest. So we are honored to have a delegation from Texas led by Representative Nicole Collier, Chair of the Texas Legislative Black Caucus, and Representative Ron Reynolds, the first Vice Chair, Texas Legislative Black Caucus. He will introduce his colleagues as well as leaders who live in Texas but wear a national hat. We have Carmen Watkins, Senior Vice President of the NAACP, and also an organizer on the ground in Texas, Camilla Factory, President, Black Freedom Factory. And then we will also hear from the Honorable Sheila Jackson Lee, U.S. Representative via phone, who has a service that she had to do in Texas, but she would not find it robbery not to find a way to bring her comments to this discussion today.
Good afternoon. My name is Nicole Collier. I have the honor of chairing the Texas Legislative Black Caucus, and I brought reinforcement. With me today is our Vice Chair, Representative Ron Reynolds. We have Representative Yvonne Davis from Dallas County. We have Representative Retta Bowers from Garland. We have Representative Cheryl Cole from Austin, Texas. And we have Representative Sean Theory from Houston, Texas. Now, this is just the small delegation that we have. We have over 50 members here in Washington, D.C. We want to thank President Melanie Campbell, the hardest working servant leader around in this country. We want to thank her for keeping this message in the forefront. We know that what is at stake is your right to have fair and free elections. A line has been drawn in the sand, and we are not going to let them hold us back. We know that when we vote as people of color, we win and we see change. And that's what needs to happen in this country. We need to have change because there's been a concerted effort in over 32 states to silence your voice. But we won't back down. We will stand ready to continue to talk with our federal counterparts. We need your help. Contact your congressperson, your state your federal congressperson. Contact your United States senator. Let them know we need them to take action. We need federal intervention. My mom used to say there's some times where there's more month at the end of the money. That's where we're at. Our backs are against the wall. We're out of time. We need the federal government to act to provide model legislation to carry us through. So we're handing the baton off to the federal government to pass legislation. You use your voice, contact them, Ask them to work together and make a change for all of us across this nation. Now I want to introduce my counterpart in the legislature, Representative Ron Reynolds, to bring you some words.
Thank you, Chair Collier, and all of our colleagues that are here from the Texas Legislative Black Caucus. And it's befitting that I would go behind our chair because the movement that so often you think of Dr. King, and Dr. King was a visionary leader, and so was Congressman John Lewis, who made good trouble and who risked it all. But really, the backbone of the civil rights movement was black women and the church, the clergy. But let me just say that far too often our history books don't focus enough on Dorothy Height. They don't focus enough on Fannie Lou Hamer, who really risked everything so that she could break Jim Crow laws that once prevented people who looked like us from serving public office. We know what Rosa Parks did. She really was the mother of the civil rights movement. It was the catalyst that really led to the Montgomery bus boycott. And so we stand on the shoulders of black women who have been the #1 voters in the country, even eclipsing white Anglo men for the highest demographic in voting. So I salute my sisters, and that's why I'm so grateful when Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee said to Chair Collier and I, will you guys show up? And we said, of course we will. And thank you, Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, and all of the other congressional members for being on the right side of history. See, Congress has done their job, led by the Congressional Black Caucus. They passed H.R. 1. They were the leaders. And now, as Chair Collier said, we're impressing upon the Senate the fierce urgency of now. We need federal legislation to pass H.R. 1, the For the People Act, and H.R. 4, the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, because states like Texas are trying to suppress the votes of black and brown folks. You know, I see my frat brother Roland Martin out there, and we were talking the other night about how in Texas, and he's a Texan, you know, in Fort Bend County, we had whites-only primaries. We have a long history of being the state that had the most difficult barriers when it came to voter ID, when it came to redistricting and gerrymandering. Texas has been the worst. And here we are fighting. The reason why we came to D.C. and broke quorum is because we were sick and tired of seeing the voter suppression efforts led by Governor Abbott, who is perpetuating Trump's big lie. And so we stand here today united in solidarity as the Texas Legislative Black Caucus and joining with all of these groups and advocacy groups on this day of action, calling upon the U.S. Senate. And as we speak, we had other colleagues on the Hill meeting with some of the key U.S. senators, urging them to pass this federal legislation. Because guess what? Governor Abbott has made it clear, as other Republican governors have, that they are hell-bent on passing these bills, even though they know there's no truth to voter fraud, even though they know they're going to disenfranchise black and brown folks. And so we're going to continue to fight. We're going to continue to speak truth to power. And we know that we're on the right side of history. And finally, I want to say this. Texas was once a great state in terms of leadership. We had a Texan that you all may remember, Lyndon Baines Johnson. And guess what? He signed the Voting Rights Act into law in August of 1965. And so it's befitting that Texans are here on the Hill advocating, making good and necessary trouble, and urging for the passage of H.R. 1 and H.R. 4. So thank you for welcoming us. We're so grateful. And these dynamic ladies right here are a great representation of the quality of the Texas Legislative Black Caucus, and I couldn't be more proud to stand with these black women. And I do know that Black Lives Matter, and there's another hashtag that I'm so proud of, Trust Black Women. Thank you. And Black Women Lead. Thank you.
We have Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee from Texas 18, who is on the line. Congresswoman, thank you for joining us.
I thank you, my sister. I could not be kept away, though I'm keeping the home ground taken care of down here in Texas, where the center of the battle is. But I am delighted to be able to join beloved sister in spirit, the Reverend Dr. Barbara Williams Skinner, Tamika, the First Lady of Washington, D.C., Cora Masters Berry, and many, many others who are there. Mika Mallory and many others. Sisterhood and the struggle of black women have always resulted in a victory. I am honored to be able to be here with the brave and courageous Democratic Texas delegation being represented by Chairwoman Nicole Collier, Greta Boyer, Sean Theory, Sherry Cole, State Representative Devon Davis, and as well the massive numbers who have come up who are scattered across in their fight. Again, thank you, Chairwoman Collier. Thank you, Representative Reynolds, Representative Cole, Representative Theory, Representative Boyes, and Representative Davis. The fight that I'm standing with you on is to acknowledge that we can't go back. We cannot go back to an era of controlism, of denial. We cannot go back to the era of violence. But what I will say to you is the idea of nonviolent disobedience is what we must engage in. Engage in it as we walk through the halls of the United States Capitol. And I am here to call on all of those who are interested in making sure that voting rights is voting rights for every American, that we show ourselves present in the state capitals, we show ourselves present in the United States Capitol, and we make a difference. Finally, let me say that H.R. 1 and H.R. 4 are in tandem. They provide the armor, the wall, the protection for innocent voters across America who did not perpetrate any fraud in 2020, but they voted 150 million strong, as the president said, and he said they voted because the fundamental principle of the United States is the fundamental principle of voting. It is a constitutional right under the 15th Amendment. And today, as we stand in front of the United Methodist headquarters, and I thank the church and all of the faith leaders who have come together to stand on the premise of the Constitution and the 15th Amendment. Please be reminded as I close to celebrate those who are courageous enough to leave their homes, their children, their families, their income, to be able to come and be in the halls of Congress. Stand with them. Stand nonviolently with them. Civil disobedience is to be respected. Finally, the word on the filibuster, which is not part of the Constitution. It is a Senate rule that tomorrow could be relieved temporarily so that the voting rights bill can be passed, meaning H.R. 1 and subsequently H.R. 4. I call upon the Senate, I call upon the leadership to stand up and use a procedural motion to call for cloture by a majority vote. When ruled out of order, then call for a vote to overturn the chair's ruling. Once that is done, the filibuster will be temporarily relieved, and once it moves in short order, soon that bill, H.R. 1, choose the floor. Maybe there will be a compromise on what it will be, but it will be H.R. 1. That is the struggle that we must engage in. We have no option. We cannot, after being elected in 2020, say to the American people, we're not part of the fight. I'm part of the fight and part of the victory. Thank you all so very much. Thank you to this great group of delegates and representatives from Texas, and we will stand with you. Thank you, Melanie. Thank you, all of you.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you, Congresswoman. And thank you all so very much. And we are with you. We are with you. We are with you. We are not just ready to fight, we fighting with you.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the Texas delegation. And now we have two other leaders from Texas who are doing the work. Carmen Watkins, Senior Vice President of the NAACP, and Kimia Factory, President of Black Freedom Factory.
Thank you, Mel, and thanks to all of you for taking the time today to address such a critical issue. I am the Senior Vice President of the NAACP Field Operations and Membership Team, but I am also a Texan. And today that gives me some bitter pause. I am so proud of these legislators who stood so bold and left the state to ensure that Texans have the fundamental right to vote. But this is not just a Texas issue. While the governor says, don't mess with Texas, these legislators have said, Texas, you have a problem. You have a problem because you are disenfranchising your voters. But we stand with those who stand up, and because we stand up, the NAACP has put forth an opportunity to cover the bail of all Texas legislators who left, who will be returning back to Texas under the threat of arrest. And I'm proud of that work. Well, let me talk about something beyond Texas, because it was Florida first, Georgia next, now Texas. These restrictive bills are coming across the country, and your community is certainly next. If you don't stand up now, you will be reacting instead of being proactive. We're encouraging you not to be silent in your pain. Babies know to cry out when they come into this world. They cry because they're confused, they're lost, they may be hurt. But for some reason, we stand in our pain and we accept it as being normal. Do not allow these Republican legislators to normalize minimizing your voice and minimizing your power. I thank you for being here today. There are some courageous leaders here today, and we're going to all stand on truth and on prosperity and on the correction of the wrongs in this United States. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Camilla Factory. I am the executive director of the Black Freedom Factory based out of San Antonio, Texas, and I am honored to stand here today and continue the fight of our ancestors. The legislators take one thing for granted. In fact, they take multiple things for granted, and that is the vote of the youth, the vote of the formerly incarcerated, the vote of single mothers, the vote of their children. Legislators take for granted the blood, sweat, and tears of our ancestors who once marched on that very hill that I have the privilege of standing on today. But is it a privilege to fight a fight that our ancestors would hope that would by now be over? Is it a stretch to dream? Is it a stretch to imagine Afro futures free of Jim Crow voting legislation, where indigenous people will have their land back, where the trans liberation will ring from the highest mountains? Can you hear me, President Biden? Can you hear me, Vice President Kamala Harris? Can you hear me, Republicans all the way from Washington, D.C. in the state of Texas, as I stand here today and I declare that that is a suppression session. It is suppression being enacted in the name of transphobia, homophobia, anti-blackness. We stand here today unified, now more than ever, because we know that we are far from the horizon of what this country was supposed to be founded upon, the principles of democracy. We are here to show the nation what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like, because one thing will remain true for the future of the United States of America, and that is that the power is in the people. You can have a constitution, you can have an amendment, you can have a bill, but none of those things will function without the people. Legislators, I urge you to no longer take the vote of the people for granted. Single mothers, pregnant teens, low-income families, segregation, and redrawing lines is something that will never hold us back. They cannot hold us back. They cannot hold our power back. Because like I said, the power is in the people. Let freedom ring, like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, from every rooftop. We will show up to the polls. We will show up in our classrooms to educate our youth on critical race theory. We will show up on the streets to march for democracy in the name of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Philando Castile, Charles Roundtree, Marquise Jones, Anthony Scott, Tamir Rice. Let freedom ring. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sister Leader. And you can tell from her words that she is definitely passionate about what she is saying. Let me bring the Georgia delegation out, please. And as they come to the podium, understand that the struggle and the fight that you heard about from the Texas delegation, the Georgia delegation lived it through this last election. So I'm going to ask Helen Butler, Executive Director of the Georgia Coalition for the People's Agenda and convener of Georgia Black Women's Roundtable, to be our first speaker. Thank you so much, Helen.
Thank you, Cleella. Despite a record turnout in Georgia, we've had to endure a lot of things. But I want to first say that I represent, as Executive Director of the Georgia Coalition for the People's Agenda, that was founded by the late Dr. Joseph Lowery, who fought with so many civil rights leaders to have the 1965 Voting Rights Act. We're fighting again. And despite that record turnout that we saw in 2020 and 2021, Georgia had to be the model of Jim Crow 2.0 voter suppression, taking back, making voting difficult, putting barriers in place, reducing the early voting days, making ID for absentee balloting process, criminalizing us for assisting voters. Everything that you want to happen that is wrong, Georgia is making it happen. But guess what? We say that Congress, you must act. We have to have For the People's Act passed. We must get rid of the filibuster. President Biden, Representative Clyburn gave you the way out of the filibuster. Exercise it now. We want you to understand that black women were the big deciding factor in Georgia, and we will continue to be the deciding factor. We must pass S1 and get rid of the filibuster now. I call on Felicia Davis, convener of the Clayton County Black Women's Roundtable.
Thank you, Helen Butler. And I'm here representing the Clayton County Black Women's Roundtable, where we have the largest delegation of black women elected officials of any county in the nation. And I just wanted to share with you what happened in 2020. So in 2020, black women in Clayton County worked hard to turn people out for election day. We then worked through Thanksgiving. We worked in the rain, in the cold. We worked through Christmas. We worked through New Year's. And as it turned out, there was a historic change in Georgia on January 5th. Now, we woke up expecting one thing in the news, and the next day we had a whole different experience. Now, we're looking at what the Georgia legislature set out, although our governor resisted efforts to tamper with the vote, to tamper with the election. No sooner did they turn around and start working to put in place every means they could come up with to limit access to the polls. And the right to vote is nothing without the ability to exercise that right. And so, as Helen, representing an organization founded by the late Dr. Joseph Lowery, I am reminded of his words. We have come too far, marched too long, prayed too hard, wept too bitterly, bled too profusely, and died too young to let anybody turn back the clock on our journey to freedom. We are here. We want the world to know. We want the Georgia legislature to know. We are so proud of our sisters and brothers in Texas that stood up, that acted, that came here to say, no, we will not be denied. So that's what time it is. And with that, I bring up my bad sister, that we work in unity in Georgia. You know, because they do know if I say black youth, they say vote. When I say black youth, they say vote. When I say black youth, you say vote. Yes. And see, my sister Deborah Scott, Georgia Stand Up, they stood up. They are still standing up. So they stand up. I'm going to let Deborah Scott come up and explain how we do it on the south side of Atlanta. So Deborah Scott with Georgia Stand Up. Come on now.
So we're going to stand up. I said we're going to stand up in Washington, D.C. Georgia is here. Georgia is here. We're not going to keep sitting for our votes to be taken. You are stripping our votes away, and we worked too hard to let you take it away. So we had to come all the way from Georgia. We came up south today. Down south came up south. We came up south to tell our Congress people that we want our right to vote, and we are not going to stand by and let you take it. We will stand up. We will organize. We will mobilize. We will get our people back out to vote people in or out of office. Do the right thing. Ariel Singleton, Black Youth Vote.
When I say black youth, you say? Black youth? Black youth? There's a couple of questions I have because as a black youth, I just don't understand that how is it not racism when the For the People Act is definitely helping black and brown brothers and sisters get the opportunity to vote in the areas that they live in? How is it not transphobic when there's an answer in the For the People Act that allows you for people that are not comfortable with their ID to have a signed affidavit or something that says, without perjury, I am ready to vote? How is it not ageism when there's students on campuses that aren't able to vote and there's nobody sitting there advocating for them to help them vote on campus? How is it not sexism when there are mothers literally taking care of their kids, having to work, and the For the People Act is expanding their right to do so with early voting and longer times for them to get out and vote? All of the answers to everything that we've been trying to figure out, how are we going to get out there and vote, how are we going to do it, has been answered in the For the People Act. But yet a filibuster has come and has tried to set those questions and those answers aside. And I just can't, as a young person, allow that to happen. This is un-American when the Declaration of Independence says life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. As a young black woman, I need my life. I have to be able to vote, to be able to say, this is how I want my life to pan out. It is my liberty and my freedom to do so and to pursue the happiness of being able to look around and say, my country and my America is just how it sees fit for me. It's being right now threatened. So I'm sitting here saying that we are standing up. Black women are out here taking action. It is not by choice. It is not by force that we're out here to do this. This is just our right. Years ago, when there was a song that was written that said, yet with our steady feet have not our weary beat. It said, until victory is won. Come where my father sighed. Why is it that I am still sighing with my fathers when they sighed hundreds of years ago? By now, they should be looking down at me saying, my work is done. However, I'm sitting here still having to work, having blisters on my feet, getting this hot sun, because y'all, it is hot out here. Having to say what they were saying was not right is still not right for me. So we're saying, I need you to exit stage left when it comes to this filibuster and do what it is right. For the people is who we stand for, right? We're standing for the people, right? So when black youth vote, we're voting. We need to stand up to do that. So I need you guys to pass the For the People Act right now if you're really for the people. We're going to test that and see, are you for the people? Because right now, how is it not that you're for the people? I'll leave that question unanswered. I'll let you answer that when you decide whether or not you're going to move this filibuster aside and pass this For the People Act. Thank you so much.
And now we are.
Hello, everybody. I am Legacy, and I will make it short. I'm Legacy only because I stand here as the direct seed of a young activist who almost died in a Marion, Alabama jail cell. I stand as the direct seed of a pregnancy that went forth from a young activist who participated in the Tuscaloosa, Alabama march. I stand the Children's March in Tuscaloosa. I stand because my parents, the late Reverend James Orange and Mrs. Cleophas Orange, fought a fight that they never thought that I would have to fight again. So who would have thought that I would have to say, protect my vote, when they almost died getting the right to vote? Ladies and gentlemen, you can throw it at us what you want. We are not to be deterred, because the bottom line is, he poured in, Reverend James Orange poured in to a group of people, especially a group of women. He empowered a group of women to take over this city, your city, my city, this state. So we're coming for you. You should do the right thing. Pass for the People's Act. Don't forget all that John Lewis stood for. But don't forget that there are people that you have the right to make it you have the responsibility to make this power of the vote ours. Don't forget. That's right. I bring up to you the late Miss Hillary Holly. She is the executive director of she's the executive director of the organization that is taken under attack because of their leaders. We cover them in our Georgia statehood. She is the executive director of Fair Fight, held by the beloved Stacey Abrams. Hillary, take it on.
Good afternoon, everybody. So, as wrapping up what you've heard in speaking on behalf of Georgians, Black people, brown people in Georgia showed up. At one point during COVID, we had the third highest death rate per capita in the world in Southwest Georgia. People don't have broadband. People don't have jobs. And everyone showed up and waited in 8, 7, 4-hour lines. We had people passing out while waiting in line. We have Black elected officials now under direct attack, like Ms. Helen Butler, for doing their jobs. We have election workers who are having to go into hiding because right-wing people that are attached to the Republican Party are threatening them. Democracy is under attack, and it is something that we cannot out-organize. I know that we were able to out-organize voter suppression in 2020, and we were barely able to deliver a trifecta, barely. But the landscape has changed. And as we have now seen, it is not just Georgia. I come in here in solidarity with people in New Hampshire. The last U.S. Senate race in New Hampshire was won by almost 1,000 votes, carried by young voters. And guess what they're doing in New Hampshire? They're coming after young voters. That could honestly change the makeup of the U.S. Senate next year. In Alaska was determined by Native voters. They are under attack based on anti-voting bills in their state and the recent SCOTUS decision. Arizona, Nevada, massive battleground states. In Pennsylvania right now, they are trying to take over election boards. They are trying to intimidate voter workers. We're seeing it in Michigan. And in real time right now, I was on the phone with colleagues in state of Georgia because they are trying to come after Fulton County, city of Atlanta right now. They are coming after us. So as I say, we are at capacity, not just in Georgia, but in at least a dozen states across this country. And our senators in Georgia cannot come back home to our voters who delivered this country a fighting chance and say that Congress didn't do everything that they can to protect their right to vote. So I call on Congress from a desperate plea to please do what's right and pass the For the People Act before the end of August. Because at August, the next battle comes and is redistricting. And the For the People Act can also provide us help when it comes to redistricting. So the time is now. We don't have until December. It's right now. So thank you all for having me, and we call on Congress to pass the For the People Act right now. Thank you.
The fierce women of Georgia who really took this charge on and has given an example to the rest of this country for what needs to happen. I will bring to you this afternoon a man who does not need a whole lot of an introduction, but for those of you who don't know him, his name is Reverend Terry Melvin, but for those of you who do know him, it's just plain old Terry rock the house. Speaking on behalf of the Coalition of Black Trade Unionists and for Labor this afternoon, Reverend Terry Melvin.
Good afternoon. Bring you greetings from the International Coalition of Black Trade Unionists, from the AFL-CIO, the New York State AFL-CIO, representing 2.5 million working families in our state, in our great state. We come to stand with black women all over this country. We come to stand up and say voting rights is everybody's rights. Voting right is a civil right. When the founding fathers put together this country, there's nothing in the founding documents about a filibuster. But there shows something in the founding documents that say we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they're endowed by their creator with certain inalienable rights, and among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We cannot pursue happiness when they're trying to take away our vote. We cannot pursue happiness when we worked so hard last year to make sure that black and brown and women votes were taken, were done around this country, and we delivered. We delivered the victory in the House. We delivered a victory in the Senate. We delivered a victory in the White House. And in January, we sealed that victory in the Senate. But in sealing that victory, we cannot allow a simple minority to come and take away all the blood, sweat, and tears we put into exercising our right to vote. We want to say to the Senate, take that filibuster and throw it out the window. 51 is 51. I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat, whoever's in charge, you ought to be able to have victory in whatever is put forth. So we need the filibuster thrown out. And why? Because if we get the filibuster thrown out, we can deal with these ancillary issues that are going on. We can stop states from coming up with these anti-voting laws that are going on all around these countries. We can put the People's Act into law. We can put the PRO Act into law. We can put the Public Service Freedom to Negotiate Act in law. We can use the voice that we did on Election Day. We ought to use that, and our politicians that we put in office ought to use that. Simple majority ought to rule. Get rid of the filibuster. Let our votes be heard. We go around this world telling everybody, one man, one woman, one vote. Well, we ought to do the same thing here in the United States of America. One man, one woman, one vote, and our leaders ought to do the same thing. Get rid of the filibuster. Let's pass the For the People Act now.
Coalition of Black Trade Unionists in the house. Thank you, Reverend Terry Melvin. Now we will hear from, and this is Black Women and Allies, so we are so thankful that our brothers are with us. So there's another awesome brother who I admire because he really knows how to make it happen on the Hill. And that's our brother Wade Henderson, who is the interim president of the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights. Wade?
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. And Melanie, thank you for that wonderful introduction. I am Wade Henderson. I'm the interim president and CEO of the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights. Leadership Conference is the nation's leading civil and human rights coalition. We have over 220 national organizations working to build an America that's as good as its ideals. Now, I'm really honored to be here this afternoon, and I'm especially honored to have answered the call of black women, both the National Council of Negro Women, headed by Dr. Janetta Cole, and the National Coalition on Black Civic Participation, headed by Melanie Campbell, are two of the most important civil rights organizations in the country, and I'm proud that both are members of the Leadership Conference family. It was black women who turned out in record numbers whose votes made the difference in the 2020 election. We know that. We know that without them, it would have been impossible to celebrate not only the victories that we enjoyed with President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris, but with the Senate elections of Reverend Warnock in Georgia and John Ossoff in Georgia, the two Georgia senators. Would not have been possible without a strong turnout of black women and their votes. So hearing the voices of women today are especially important. Now, colleagues, voting is the language of democracy. If you don't vote, you don't count. And if your votes are shaved off in a way, like a point shaving scheme in basketball, you can't possibly win an election. What's happening now in the states is that laws are now being passed that are not intended to disenfranchise wholesale populations, but it will certainly shave off the votes of black, brown, indigenous, and new Americans in a way that will make us the victims of this most recent perversion of American democracy. So let me say one thing. I was part of a group of civil rights leaders, legacy civil rights groups that met with President Biden last week. We had a very simple message. The president must lead, Congress must act. We need action immediately on 3 bills. The For the People Act, the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, and the D.C. Statehood Bill. Colleagues, I'm a native of D.C. I am not a citizen of the United States full grown. I don't have a representative who has a meaningful vote in Congress, either in the Senate or even in the House, with Representative Eleanor Norton, who is wonderful. And she is the conscience of the Congress in many ways, but she doesn't have a vote that counts. So we need statehood as well. So I'm here to deliver a very important message to follow up on comments that have been made. Look, we can't allow an arcane Senate procedure like the filibuster to stand in the way of American democracy. And we need to hear the voices of the American people that are supporting this legislation because they know it's the right thing to do. So today's action is part of a continuous effort to raise high the need for all 3 bills, the For the People Act, the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, and the D.C. Statehood Bill. On Saturday evening, we are hosting at Black Lives Matter Plaza something we're calling John Lewis Good Trouble Vigils. 100 of them are taking place around the country. But the one in D.C. is going to be premier. We hope all of you will turn out and help provide additional voice to our demand for the passage of these bills and send a signal, yes, to Congress, but also to the White House, that we need a president to make more than just rhetorical commitments. We need action, and action involves helping to nudge Congress to change the filibuster. So with that, I will stop. Honored to be here, and thanks to all of you for standing out today in support of American democracy. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Wade Henderson, legacy before us, as always, appreciated. The guidance and the counseling comes without any attachments, just your strength. Thank you so very much. I'm going to ask the next group that is up for speaking, which is a group of women, men, and LGBTQ leaders. I'm going to ask Sister Siobhan Arlene Bradley to come to the mic first with her Delta sisters, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Siobhan Arline Bradley, and I am here representing Beverly Smith from Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, standing here with members of our organization. We represent over 300,000 predominantly African-American women with 1,060 chapters across this globe here to say we want our voting rights. And in Matthew chapter 7, the verse says, they will operate as wolves in sheep's clothing. And today we say we are seeing the wolves for who they are. Delta Sigma Theta stands for voting rights. We have stood the test of time for over 108 years. And today we stand to see the wolves for who they are. The state legislatures across this country have shown themselves to not care for black communities, to not care for even the American dream, which is to have the right to vote in this country. If we don't have our voting rights, we don't have our human rights. If we don't have our voting rights, we have nothing. So today, my sorors of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, with leaders like Cora Masters Berry, like Joyce Beatty, like Ajua Asamoah, like leaders across this country, across this globe, we stand united, locked hand in hand with brothers and sisters to say,
We want our rights. Pass this legislation, or else you will see black women, black communities, and black leaders rise up until victory, liberty, and justice for all is won. May God bless you, and know that we will not stop until we reach our goal.
All right. Will not stop.
Now, thank you. Now we will hear from our sister Carol Joyner, Director, Labor Project for Working Families, Family Values at Work.
Thank you, Melanie Campbell, our sister leader who always sounds the call for action, for bringing us together today to tell us the truth about the democratic elections we held in 2020, where we saw record voting, zero fraud in the midst of a deadly pandemic, where people risked their lives to vote because their lives depended on it. You've brought us together today to tell the truth about the bogus claims of fraud that have led us to a nationwide attack on our voting rights, with tons of evidence showing that the big lie is just that, a big lie. You've brought us together to tell the truth about what is at stake if our voting rights are dismantled, taking us back to Jim Crow era voting. And be clear, the stakes have never been higher. We are on the road to prosperity, and we will not go back. Because of this past election, America has seen better management of COVID-19 pandemic, with a significant majority of adults across the country having at least one vaccine. It's why we're seeing declines in hospitalizations and declines in deaths all over the country, except in those regions of the country where the other big lie persists. The American Rescue Plan also wrestled control over COVID, providing relief to families, businesses, cities, and states, with a highlight being that today, nearly 90% of families with children will receive their first child tax credit, checks in the bank, cutting poverty, securing our families, and helping our kids. It is why the leadership deserves praise for reaching 2 deals that will result in record funding for our crumbling infrastructure, bridges and tunnels, and our families, and our planet. And we know something about that planet, given how hot it is today. This is the most monumental infusion of capital into our homes and communities since the New Deal, with a commitment for the first time to racial and gender justice. But we can't repair our crumbling infrastructure if we can't vote. We can't cut poverty and make the child tax credits permanent if we can't vote. We can't get 12 weeks of paid family and medical leave for every family if we can't vote. We can't cool this planet down by passing laws that end fossil fuel use if we can't vote, and we certainly can't make corporations and billionaires pay their fair share of taxes if we can't vote. The list goes on. Voting is fuel for our just economy and power for family prosperity. We've been brought together today to call for passage of the For the People Act and for ending the filibuster, ensuring our ability to vote for elected officials who put people before profit and the nation before partisanship and greed. This is our charge. We will not wait. We will not stop until it is fully protected, until our vote is fully protected by Congress. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol Joyner. Now we will hear from Joteka Edie, Chief Organizer, Win with Black Women, and our sister Glenda Carr, founder and president of the Higher Heights for America, and Akeisha Lewis with the National Black Justice Coalition. Following these sisters, we will then hear from Wes Bellamy, Chair of Advocacy for 100 Black Men of America Incorporated. We are serious. This is just the start of our mobilization as far as organizing ourselves as a collective coalition. So sisters and brothers, come right up.
Good evening. My name is Joteka Edie, and I stand here representing hashtag Win with Black Women. Win with Black Women is a united collective of black women representing every industry in this nation. And we stand united with black women across the country to send one message, is that we must pass this bill to protect our democracy and our voting rights. We have seen this aggressive attack on voting rights before, and we know why it is coming. We know it is to attack the power of our vote. We know it is to attack the power of our ability to pass comprehensive health care for all, for our ability to ensure that we have a climate in which we can all breathe, our ability to ensure that our educational system is fair, and our ability to ensure that our economy works for us all. But what I would tell you is that black women since the beginning of time have always done what we needed to do when we needed to do. We have always stood in the gap, and we will continue to do so because we stand on a long legacy. We stand on the legacy of those like Sojourner Truth. We stand on the legacy of those like Barbara Jordan. We stand on the legacy of those like Dr. Dorothy Irene Height. We stand on the legacy of those like Fannie Lou Hamer, who said, I am sick and tired of being sick and tired. And today, we are sick and tired of being sick and tired. So we will not stop marching. We will not stop registering voters. We will not stop voting. And we will make sure that every single member of Congress, that they hear our voice loud and clear, that we will not ever give up, that we will be clear in our message, that we must protect our democracy, and we must make voting an ability for everyone. Long gone is the time where legislators get to choose their voters, because we put them in office and we will put them out of office if they continue to violate our voting rights. We stand united, and we will not stop fighting. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Glenda Carr, President and CEO of Higher Heights, the political home for black women. We know that when black women vote, we move this country forward. Black women have been the architects of our democracy from the suffrage movement to the civil rights movement to today. The 24 million black women in this country are demanding our return on our voting investment. And for a country that should be leading in expanding voting rights, we find ourselves fighting to protect the very rights we've been working on for decades. And so, just like black women, when we vote, we don't go to the polls alone. We bring our house, our block, our church, our sorority, and our union. That is what we're going to do to organize, to have a conversation and demand that states, our state legislators, and our congressional members hear that we just don't mobilize to go to the polls. We are going to mobilize our house, our block, our church, our sorority, and our union to make phone calls, to join rallies like this, to call, to email, to tweet, to TikTok, to show that democracy doesn't begin and end on Election Day. In fact, it begins. And so we have work to do as black women. And I'm so excited to rally with black women from across this country and black leaders to show the power of black women 365 days a year. And so I look forward to working with my colleagues to ensure that we are organizing our memberships to call on this Congress to expand, in addition to protect, expand voting rights. We should be the innovators in modern day democracies, and we should not be fighting to secure votes, but more importantly, votes for those have grabbed power. So at the end of the day, we have a country that is concerned about the changing demographics of the electorate, and that this electorate is changing the face of our democracy and electing those next generation leaders that look like black women. And so we will stand with black women, elected women across this country as they fight to ensure that we are blocking these detrimental bills that are coming before our legislatures and this Congress, but more importantly, putting forth legislation that innovates our voting system in a way that will be the leader of this globe. Good afternoon. My name is Nikisha Lewis, and I'm an advocate with the National Black Justice Coalition, which, as I'm sure some of you know, is the nation's leading civil rights organization for Black, LGBTQ, and same-gender-loving people. As my community and I sit here waiting still for years and years for the passage of the Equality Act, this particular attack on voting rights is a significant attack on our lives. We already live at the margins of society. And our voting rights is one of the only rights that we have to ensure that we have a democracy that truly represents us and affirms our humanity. Black, LGBTQ, and same-gender loving people live in very transient situations. Some of us pushed out by our families or dealing with housing insecurity of another nature. And so the inability to be able to use provisional ballots and to be able to really the ability to be able to organize our people wherever we are so that we have a unified and amplified voice is severely at stake. And so we need not only those of you who believe in voting rights, but those of you who believe in humanity to stand with us, to demand that we get to live free in this country, to believe that we get to have a voice that will give us access to housing, a voice that will give us access to equal opportunity at employment, a voice that would allow us to really, truly achieve the American dream. And so I ask you, if you really believe in the power of the people, that you also make space for the Black, LGBTQ, and same-gender loving people. As my sister Glenda said, Black women show up, and they show up for everybody. And Black women are queer too. Black women who raise families together with other Black women are disproportionately affected. And so make space for us, and hear us, and know that we are in this fight through and through, until truly justice is achieved for all of us. So we ask not only for the passage of the John Lewis Act, but we also ask for the passage of the Equality Act, knowing that our entire lives are at stake. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Wes Bellamy, and I'm the former Vice Mayor of Charlottesville, Virginia. I currently serve as the National Co-Chair of Our Black Party, as well as the National Public Policy Chairman for the 100 Black Men of America. We have an obligation to not only stand up and fight for what's right, but as a Black man, I have a duty and obligation to stand up for Black women. I was birthed by a Black woman. She was birthed by a Black woman. I'm often fought for by Black women. I'm often taught by Black women. I'm often led by Black women, and it is Black women who consistently and continuously lead our nation. As a Black man, again, my obligation and my duty is clear. Not only stand and support Black women, but stand behind them, stand beside them, lead them if need be, but do as they see fit in order for our nation to move forward. The Voting Rights Act is one of the most consequential acts in which we will ever see in our lifetime. We as a nation have a duty and obligation to not only stand up for all people, but specifically for those who have sacrificed themselves, i.e. Black women and Black people overall. In order for us to move our nation forward, there's nothing wrong with us being critical of it. Because I love this nation, I have a duty and obligation to hold this nation accountable for not only its atrocities, but call it out in terms of doing better. Right now, today, we're calling on Senate, we're calling on members of the legislature to do better. It's not enough for us to just say simply that only X or Y or Z are not doing their job. More importantly, it's impediment that we all stand together and fight. It was a Black woman, Assata Shakur, who said we have nothing to lose but our chains. It was a Black woman, Assata Shakur, who said when we win, we fight. When we fight, we win. And I'm here prepared to fight. I'm here knowing that we will win. And I hope that each and every single one of you will stand not only with me, but these beautiful Black sisters who've been sacrificing and standing for all of us. Thank you.
There is always a time that is right for God. And there's a sister who can make you feel closer than any that I know. Dr. Barbara Williams Skinner has brought her words of comfort, has brought her words of understanding to so many various groups. Having her on this mic this afternoon is a true blessing. I bring to you Dr. Barbara Williams Skinner.
Thank you. I'm Dr. Barbara Williams Skinner, and I'm co-convener of the National African American Clergy Network of denomination and independent church leaders around the country, representing some 15 million members. We stand in total support of the For the People Act and for ending the Jim Crow-like filibuster. Black clergy across the country stand in the tradition of our Lord and Liberator, Jesus Christ, defender of the poor, the oppressed, and the marginalized, who sent a clear message to what it means to be his follower when he said, "Whatever you do to the least of these, my brothers and sisters, you are doing to me." Making voting accessible to all eligible voters is God's business. It's sacred work. It is about the inherent dignity and divinity of every person made in the image of God. And any assault on black, brown, elderly, disabled, poor, student, or any other American's right to vote is an assault on God. It is an attack on the least of these. It is an offense to people of conscience everywhere. In his letter from the Birmingham jail, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. expressed his extreme disappointment at white moderate Christians when he said they were more detrimental to the cause of racial equality than the Ku Klux Klan. His own words. Well, today, black clergy express our extreme disappointment with white evangelicals who stand in opposition to the very Jesus they claim to follow by supporting racially motivated, undemocratic, and unjust laws. Whether you were in the Congress or you were a state legislator and call yourself a follower of Jesus, we say stand for the Constitution, stand for truth, and not a lie that the election was stolen. Stand with your black, your brown, your Asian, your indigenous brothers and sisters and their allies. Stand for democracy and the right to vote.
Taking a look at the lineup that's here, there's no one that we can ever bring to this podium that everyone knows except this next speaker. Sister Cora Masters Berry has a name that walks across the District of Columbia, but then against the USA. Cora Master Berry is a board member for NCBCP. More than that, she's a political scientist and a strategist. And in one of the toughest wards in the district, she has made it turn from a sour orange to a shining apple. And I say that because she never gave up. And whatever they say about it, she always stands and puts her hands on her hip and says, "I know my people." So speaking to your people, Cora Masters Berry.
Good afternoon. She said all she needs to say about who I am, but the most important person that I am other than a child of God, I fight for the liberation of my people. I live in a part of the country where I'm very, very familiar with not having the right to vote. There are so many rules and laws and policies that we don't control because there's a plantation up there that will not allow our people to be free. So first and foremost, I represent the District of Columbia, the last colony. I also want to say as a political science professor and as a person who was a political activist 30, 40 years ago, I am devastated that I'm standing here today. I was there when they put the water hose on us and the dogs. I was there when they locked us up. I was there when they hung us. I was there when they turned our colleges and our schools into rubble. And here I am again. I could talk all day about the 13th, the 14th, the 15th Amendment, or the 1964, the 1965 Voting Rights Act and Civil Rights Act. But more importantly, what you really need to really focus on is, of all of the things that we have fought for in this country, of all of the rights that we have gained. There is one right that they consistently keep from us and keep us from doing, and that is voting. So if you want to know if voting is important, ask yourself why they work so hard to keep you from voting. And here we are in 2021, 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment, nothing. 1964 Voting Rights, Civil Rights Act, 1965 Voting Rights Act, nothing. It means nothing. It's just a piece of paper until more people come in, and when they see we rise up, what do? They pass laws to bring us down. But us as a people, when they do that, we say enough is enough, and we will fight back, we will vote, and we will not stop until freedom rings. Thank you very much.
Reverend Andrea, say it for me, darling. Andrea, I'm from South Carolina, so you get the country version of my pronunciation, okay? Andrea Alexander, Associate General Secretary for Advocacy and Action for Justice and Peace at the National Council of Churches, USA. That's heavy stuff. Please welcome our sister.
The National Council of Churches represents 38 Protestant denominations around the country, over 100,000 congregations, covering the entire spectrum of the Christian theology and philosophy. The word of God from the prophet Jeremiah speaks to this moment, saying that they have treated the wounds of my people carelessly, saying, peace, peace, when there is no peace. There has never been peace in this land. Our democracy being under attack is not new. In fact, democracy as a system of government of the people, by the people, and for the people was under attack as this nation was being established. Democracy was aborted before it was ever born. When the all-white male land-owning enslavers, sympathizers of enslavers, and those willing to acquiesce to chattel slavery as compromise, intentionally excluded the first people of this land and people of African descent as part of the we, or the people. In the revered preamble of our glorified Constitution, we, the people of the United States, and so on, they gathered behind closed doors and negotiated using the perpetually excluded persons as pawns, those who died, bled, and labored to build a new nation. Before then and up to now, we has not included all of us. People has not included all of us. Today, the perpetually excluded will fight and demand that our very humanity be acknowledged, let alone our right to citizenship. We have pleaded, we have marched, we have been physically and emotionally tortured, we have been killed without redress. We are sick and tired of being sick and tired. Today we demand that those who say they believe in freedom and democracy, our congressional leaders who wax eloquently about democracy, do what you can and have required to do. Do your job. Bring that vision of democracy into fruition. We demand that this nation stop compromising on our backs to our detriment, because we too are the people.
Thank you so very much, sister. Now, coming to us is one of our own, Reverend Tony Lee, who's a board member of the National Coalition and pastor of the Community of Hope AME Temple Hills in Maryland.
My brothers and my sisters, on this day, we have to decide what we're going to be dedicated to.
that we have to decide whether we're going to be dedicated to justice or dedicated to the status quo, whether we're going to be dedicated to disenfranchised or dedicated to white supremacy. That we have to make a decision in this moment on what we're going to be dedicated to. But not just what we're going to be dedicated to, but dedication then brings determination. What we are determined to fight for. And in this season, we have to realize that when we are fighting for voting rights, this is not just a policy issue, this is a people issue. This is about people being able to have access to their piece of the pie in this nation. This is about people being able to have access to the kind of policies that shape and reshape their institutions and the institutions that govern where they live. This isn't just about the White House, this is about the schoolhouse. This isn't just about the house here, but this is about what happens in the prison house, and what happens in the courthouse, what happens in your house, in my house. This is about the people in this nation. And so we do not have the luxury of being complacent about justice. We do not have the luxury of taking our time. We do not have the luxury of waiting, but we have to use every tool in the toolbox to make sure that we get what we need. And voting rights is not an option. This is not something that congressional leaders can wait on and take their time on and sit and say, well, we'll wait until next year, wait until next election. No, these folks are fighting for keeps all over this nation, and we have to protect the rights of our folks, because this is not about policy. It's about people. It's about your children and my children, our children's children, and what they shall be able to be. And so we have to make sure to be determined in this moment to use everything we can in this fight to God's honor and to God's glory. God bless you.
And now get ready. Get ready, get ready, get ready, get ready. Together coming before you this afternoon is Natasha Brown, co-founder of Black Voters Matter, and Tamika Mallory and Linda Sarso, co-founders of Until Freedom. Natasha Brown.
Well, the first thing I did right was the day I started to fight. Keep your eyes on the prize and hold on, hold on. I just wanted to start in the spirit of what got us here. Our people 60 years ago in Selma, Alabama, where I'm a native from, literally sang that song. They didn't have government on their side. They didn't even have the political parties on their side. What they believed, though, is they believed in their own humanity. They believed in their agency. They believed in their people. They believed in something greater, right, than what we're standing here for today, but in that same spirit, that we believe that we have agency, that we believe that the people literally all have the right to be able to make decisions about what governs them and who governs them. And we ain't turning around. This is a space that we're saying we don't care what political party, we don't care what candidate is in the Senate, we don't care who it is. At the end of the day, we have come too far and we are not turning back. It is a shame that as I stand here right now, when we worked our behinds off in this last Georgia election, the Secretary of State, Raffensperger, the Republican, who actually Trump called and asked him to find thousands of 11,000 votes, and also wanted him to take over the Fulton County election, he has now announced that he's going to do that. We coming for you, Raffensperger. We coming for you. We ain't going to forget. Right at the end of the day, we have to really recognize that democracy has to go beyond being a propaganda point in this nation. It has to be real. And until all people have free and fair, open access to the ballot, we don't have democracy. Stop saying it because it's not true. But guess what? We're going to make it be true. We're going to make it be real, because this is democracy in action. This is what it looks like. So I'm saying to everybody that's listening right now, rise up, mighty people, that this is our space. This is our nation. We literally have to shape it to be exactly what we want it to be. And in that spirit and in that space, the same thing that those folks stood on the Evan Pettus Bridge in Selma, Alabama, when they didn't have anything but their faith. They believed that there was a greater force that was working with them and alongside them. I had that same belief. I believe that we will win. I believe that we will win. I believe that we will win.
right. Let's give it up again for Latasha Brown and Black Voters Matter. They work really, really hard across this nation. So if she says she believes that we will win, we will win. We will win. My name is Tamika Mallory, and I'm one of the 4 co-founders of an organization called Until Freedom. I work for Melanie Campbell and do whatever she tells me to do. Yesterday, 1 year ago yesterday, 87 people led by Until Freedom were arrested together on the lawn of Attorney General Daniel Cameron in Louisville, Kentucky, fighting for justice for Breonna Taylor. We still don't have justice for that sister. However, we started a movement in Louisville around police overhaul, not reform, but overhaul. And many of you know us, my colleague and the other co-founder, Linda Sarsour, is here standing with me today. You know us from our efforts to change policing and the criminal justice system in America. But the great thing about us being here today, standing with all the women who you have heard from, all the organizers that you have heard from, is that while we may come from different areas of expertise, we understand what intersectional movement building means.
That's right.
Our voting rights are important because without it, we can't have police accountability.
That's right.
Our voting rights are important and critical because without it, the education fight is in danger.
That's right.
Every area of our survival is hanging on us being able to protect the right to vote.
That's right. Come on.
And so each and every person who may feel more passionate about a different issue needs to know that this is the issue of our time.
That's right.
If we cannot secure our right to go to the ballot box and put people in office who will follow the leadership of the streets, not the suites, but the streets. If we cannot make that decision, then everything we've been fighting for in all the other areas will be for naught.
That's right.
And so we want to make sure that our movement to protect our right to vote is strong and that everyone knows that you have a place at the table, that this is a table that should be built by all of us and that all of us need to be standing together. I believe that Breonna Taylor would be someone out here with us after seeing and experiencing this movement. She would be with us saying, well, we need the right to vote because if we had a different attorney general, maybe I would have justice. Maybe someone else would have been in office that would not have lied and really played to those people who have been terrorists in our communities. That's what happened. That the Attorney General decided that the people who are against our communities were his friends. And he decided to choose them over a young black woman who was shot to death in her home for no reason. So if you don't understand why voting rights are important, think about Breonna Taylor. And think about all the others who have died and there's been no accountability because many of our elected officials don't have the guts and or the love for black people to stand up and protect our rights. God bless you all.
Linda Sarsour, also one of the co-founders of Until Freedom. I mean, Tamika said it all, but I'm just going to say one thing here. There's a term called loyalty. And we at Until Freedom and the movement for voting rights and for civil rights and human rights in America, we are only loyal to our people. We are not loyal to Democrats or Republicans. That's right. And we are here to send a message to our Senate Democratic leadership. I don't want to know what you believe. I don't want to hear about what you believe. I want you to show me what you believe. I need to see sacrifice. I need to see risk-taking. I need to see you using every tool that you have in the toolbox. Because the Republicans have showed you over and over and over again that they are willing to do everything that they can for hatred, for divisiveness, to be anti-black, to be anti-immigrant, to be anti-LGBTQ, to be anti-women. They show us every day what they are willing to do for the things that they believe in. What we need you to do is do what you're supposed to do. Be leaders. You right now are in the majority, and you need to end the filibuster. And you need to find a way to end the filibuster. Whatever you got, if you got to chain yourself to McConnell's office, if you got to come out to these streets with us, whatever you need to do, That's what you need to do to make sure that we are not going back 50 years. If you want to honor the legacy of Congressman John Lewis, and it bothers me every time when people invoke his name and say we're good trouble and Congressman John Lewis did this. Congressman John Lewis, he literally spilled blood in those streets. He broke bones in the streets to sacrifice for us to stand here today with the right to vote. So if you honor him, come to the streets, put your bodies on the line, and stop talking and start doing.
Thank you all. If that was not a powerful trilogy that came through that stage, then something happened to your ears and you just weren't listening properly. Now we're going to bring out, for next to the last speakers, okay? Can I get Christina Chin and Charlie Carter and Joy Cheney, Damon Hewitt, and Talik Macmillan to come outside, please? And who's the brave soul that wants to go first?
I'll go first.
Oh, all right then, sister.
How are you?
Thank you so much to all of you all for being out here, and particularly thank you to the organizers for being out here, standing in this heat. My name is Joy Cheney, and I'm the Executive Director of the Washington Bureau for the National Urban League. On behalf of our President and CEO, Mark Morial, our 91 affiliates in 300 communities across this nation, I want to say we can't think of a better place to be here as we go into the anniversary weekend of John Lewis's death than right here fighting for voting rights. As Congressman Lewis said, your vote is precious, almost sacred. It is the most powerful nonviolent tool we have to create a more perfect union, and no one knows that better than the people who are seeking to undermine our right to vote. Since November 2020, 48 state legislatures across the country have introduced hundreds of restrictive voting laws that would prevent voters from casting their votes freely, safely, and equally. And with the Supreme Court just over there, most recent decision to uphold suppressive voting rights provisions in Arizona, this further proves that this moment demands that we fight back from narrow voter access and suppressions to our vote. It is intentional and it is pernicious, the movement that is going across the nation. A few weeks ago, the Senate, where I used to work and it was right over there, used the filibuster to block advancement of the For the People Act, failing to protect the most fundamental tenet of our democracy. Thus, right now, the Senate has got to make a decision. Would they rather uphold a remnant of institutionalized white supremacy or to honor the right that is granted to all of us under the Constitution? This is not a partisan issue. This is an American issue. So let us do the very thing that Congressman Lewis taught us, create good trouble, and urge Congress to reform the filibuster and pass the For the People Act and the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. Our democracy depends on it. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Christine Chen, and I'm the Executive Director for Asian and Pacific Islander American Vote. We're a national organization, nonpartisan org, that works to mobilize Asian American and Pacific Islanders, or AAPIs, in electoral and civic participation. Since our founding in 2007, we've worked with our partners in 28 states to break the perception that our communities are not interested in voting, but in reality have been excluded from this basic right because of a lack of outreach, language accessibility, and limited options to casting a ballot early. Today, we celebrate playing a part in turning out the highest number of APIs in history to vote in the 2020 general elections. This success was driven in large part by the 73% of API voters who use mail-in and early voting. And in places like Georgia, 85% of API's voters chose to vote early. However, we have been dismayed with the growing number of state voting laws that make it harder to vote. We particularly condemn laws that limit early and mail-in voting. We know how difficult it is also to understand ballots, even for those of us who are English proficient. Mail-in ballots allow our voters to complete their ballot at home while receiving language support from family and friends. These restrictions and eliminations of these options, as well as repressive voting registration efforts will limit API votes, depress turnout, and weaken our community's voice. Let me be clear, laws that strip access to early voting, revoke same-day voter registration, and even criminalize handing out food or drink to voters waiting in line do not protect democracy. They weaken it. Voter ID initiatives put immigrant communities under greater scrutiny based on stereotypical ideas of Asians as foreigners versus Americans who have the right to vote. All this comes as we increase our turnout by historic proportions. Across the country, Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders are testifying, protesting, and organizing to protect our right and freedom to vote. For example, our local partners in Texas are on the front lines as well of combating blatant voter suppression, waiting for over 17 hours to testify against dangerous anti-voter measures. And we stand in solidarity with all of you today. But to succeed, we need Congress to pass For the People Act and the John Lewis Voting Rights Act to ensure APIs, Blacks, Latinos, Native Americans, young and old, all Americans have their freedom to vote protected before it's too late. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you for coming out today and during this 90-degree weather. I'm really proud to be here today with so many powerful Black women and our allies, taking action to save our democracy. My name is Charlie Carter. I'm the Executive Director of the Democracy Initiative. We are a unique intersectional coalition of 75 organizations and 45 million members. The DI brings together advocates from civil rights, labor, environment, and faith communities to fight for a more inclusive democracy and to end the Jim Crow filibuster rule. Black women have always showed up for democracy. When our last president nearly set the country on fire, we showed up on election day with buckets and put out that fire. We are the most dependable and most loyal voting bloc. We are here today to let Leader Schumer and our senators know that it's time our loyalty be returned. It's time to end the filibuster, pass the For the People Act, the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. It's time to give the people of D.C. a right to vote in Congress. Our democracy, our House, is on fire. But for the last several months, we have watched our leaders debate, negotiate, and try to placate the very arsonist who set it ablaze. When your house is on fire, you don't hold off fighting the fire to debate the tactics the firefighters will use to put it out. When your house is on fire, you don't stop to ask whether there will be enough water to put out some future fire. When your house is burning, you don't hold off fighting the fire until you can get some of the arsonists to agree to help put it out. You just put out the fire. 2 weeks ago, Minority Leader Mitch McConnell made it clear he would block any attempts to put out the fire. We cannot allow our democracy to be held hostage by Mitch McConnell or that racist relic of white supremacy called the filibuster rule. It's time to end the filibuster. It's time to pass the For the People Act. It's time to finally give Black and brown voters the permanent protection that they have deserved for the last 50 years. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Tylee McMillan, and I serve as the National Director of Youth and College for the National Action Network. I want to thank the conveners for having us here and Melanie for having us here today. I say to you all today that democracy is under attack. I say democracy is under attack. In light of what we are seeing across the country and just right here across the street, the Supreme Court, we saw a decision which further gutted the Voting Rights Act. At this moment, we need to escalate where we are. We cannot afford to stand still with where we are. In this moment, we need to escalate because we cannot afford to have legislation to answer what is clearly not only a legislative but judicial leaning of not only voter suppression, but voter suspension. You heard me right. I said voter suppression, and we see a serious attack of voter suspension. I don't know about you, but I can't seem to understand the limit to early voting. I can't seem to not understand more than one ID needing to be used. I can't seem to understand the removal of drop boxes and partisan control. Family, I am clear. I'm clear that Medgar Evers was not murdered on his lawn in front of his children and in front of his wife by the Klansmen, so we can hold positions and be in charge. I'm clear, family, that Fannie Lou Hamer didn't say, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. And Martin Luther King was not jailed in Alabama, knifed in his chest, shot down in cold blood on the balcony in Memphis, so we can bury our heads today and seek position and not power. I'm clear that John Lewis did not get beat over the head walking across the Edmunds Pettus Bridge, so we can only experience symbolism and not the things we know we all deserve. We deserve and we demand and we require that from these streets to those seats, that the For the People Act and the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act be passed immediately and put on the president's desk to be signed. We cannot wait. We will not wait. Now is not the time to get comfortable or complacent or to feel like we have arrived somewhere. But now is the time, as Reverend Sharpton often says to me, to get active. And that is why on August the 28th, we are convening here in Washington, D.C. and all across the country to march for voting rights in collaboration with Martin Luther King III and other coalition partners. And we're keeping the fire to the streets, which has continued to be done here in this city. And that's why I encourage you all to visit nationalactionnetwork.net to sign up and register so we can show out in the streets to ensure that we protect the right to vote. And in closing, as Red would often say to me, these times that we're in is not about a generation that knows it all. It's not about a generation that has all of the energy, but it is our synergy together that we must stand up and fight back. The National Action Network gets committed. We all here are committed to get this done. It's time to wake up because democracy is under attack. No justice, no peace.
Good afternoon. Damon Hewitt, President and Executive Director of the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law. Our organization was founded not far from here at the White House in 1963, when President John F. Kennedy called the nation's leading top lawyers, an integrated group at the time, an integrated group of top lawyers to come and be what he called the private attorneys general, to work alongside his brother, the Attorney General Bobby Kennedy. He did it because he knew that we needed people of conscience who had means, who had access, who had legal training to work in service of racial justice, to put your money where your mouth is, to have the walk follow the talk. We've been doing that for almost 60 years. But I'm here to tell you, we filed in the last several years more voting rights lawsuits by far than the U.S. Department of Justice. Through the Election Protection Coalition of nearly 300 organizations nationwide, we have reached millions of voters over the course of the course of the program, and 250,000 voters just last year alone. We mobilized for 45,000 attorney volunteer slots. We filed last year, we participated in over 50 voting rights lawsuits in 1 year, all over the country. But I'm telling you, it's still not enough. The lawyers, the organizers, we can't all do it alone. As the prior speaker said, it is time to wake up, because there's a lot of people pretending here in D.C. and in state houses and all across the country and on certain broadcast networks. People pretending that, well, there's no discrimination. People pretending that, well, it's just a little bit of discrimination, as the Supreme Court said recently in its decision out of Arizona. It's not enough discrimination to really matter. People pretending that, oh, well, it hurts people, but we can campaign and organize our way out of it. No, you cannot. You cannot. We need the lawyers and the litigation. We need the advocacy. But guess what? You have courts, you have community. You also need Congress. Congress has to do its job. Congress must do its job. We're talking here about putting together the pieces of a puzzle. There's not one thing that is going to save us and solve our democracy problem. But what we do know is that if pieces of the puzzle are missing, we will continue to have a problem day in, day out, year in, year out. And it may not be visible to the naked eye, but you know who it's going to matter to? It's going to matter to you when your vote's not counted. It's going to matter to your grandmother when her polling site changes. It's going to matter to your cousin who says, I don't know what to do because they told me I can't vote anymore. I can't vote at all. It's going to matter to the man who stood in line for hours to vote, only to be told later, well, you weren't allowed, so now we're going to prosecute you. This is why we need urgent legislation. This is why we need it now. Because we don't have a level playing field nationwide. We don't have a level playing field in states or even within certain communities. What we have is a takeover of democracy, eroding it at its core. And unless Congress acts, that will continue to happen. I don't want black people, brown people, any people to be exhibit A for discrimination to prove the point after the fact. We know what's been happening. We know what will happen. It's time for Congress to act now. That is our stand. Stand with us. Thank you.
You know, this is a congresswoman who's always in charge, and I am insisting on introducing her this afternoon because, number one, she's a bad sister, and number two, she's my soror. And on top of all of that, she's absolutely brilliant. Let me bring to you Congresswoman Joyce Speedy, who is a warrior, has been a warrior, and continues to be the warrior that leads the fight for justice.
First of all, let me just say thank you to my sister Crayola for that, because it takes a warrior, someone who has been in the fight, someone who has fought for our families, for our voting rights, for labor, for the movement. But today I come to say thank you. Thank you for allowing me to join this platform with you. When we talk about black women leaders and allies, voting rights call to action, you see, we're here today because we will continue to come and to stand up to protect our voting rights. We will do this until we pass the John R. Lewis Voting Rights Act. I am the chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, 57 members strong. I know what we have to lose. We have everything to lose, and we need you. We come today with a clarion call and a clarion message. And that message is join us in the fight to make sure that we pass the John R. Lewis voting rights. You have heard speaker after speaker after speaker come and share with you the stories from Martin Luther King Jr. and John Lewis and Fannie Lou Hamer and so many more. We've heard about people dying. We've heard about people being hosed and the dogs that have come. But let me just tell you, here we are today. We might as well still have the dogs and the hoses because we don't have the Voting Rights Act. And that's why we need to march in these streets. We need to march as those who were followers of Martin Luther King and John Lewis. We need to march with those who are with the labor movement. We need to march with the brothers and sisters in the LGBTQ community. We need to march with the Black Lives Matter. We need to march with the Panhellenic and the Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. We need to come together. Why? We just witnessed what the justices did in that Arizona opinion with Section 2. We know about pre-clearance. I don't have to walk you through it. We know those in those southern states lived through it in 1965 and before. And let me just tell you something. We're living it again in 2021. We know that if we don't stand up for justice, justice won't be received. Here we are, 56 years after the passage of the Voting Rights Act of 1965, still under attack. Still state legislatures are working overtime. Do I need to remind you about Texas? Do I need to remind you of the brothers and sisters who left there to come here and to go other places? Well, let me just say this. Thank you. Thank you to those black leaders for standing up. So if you want to model something, if you want to ask what black folks are doing for the voting rights, then look at what those individuals did in the State House. Look at what we're doing today in the Congressional Black Caucus, joining strong with this movement with black women leaders. Let me just say, we are demanding justice. And it's going to go beyond the hollow grounds we stand on here today. We're going to march across the street. We're going to take over those grounds at the Senate to send them a message. And that message is, we want the John R. Lewis voting rights brought to the Congress. We want it passed in the Senate. We want to march it up to the White House where our president can sign it. If we're going to build back better, what a better way to start than with the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. So lastly, strong women, black women, anchored by you all, and brothers. I say thank you. Thank you for standing with me. Thank you for standing with the Congressional Black Caucus. We've got leaders here. So when you talk to America in your neighborhoods and in your communities, you tell them that the young sisters in the streets stood with us. You tell them the young brother who spoke right before me was out here speaking. So you see, it's not generation. You see, it's every generation. His children and grandchildren and those yet unborn are affected. I brought two bad sisters with me today. I said, I hope today I can get arrested. I got a young attorney out here that's the director of member services for the Congressional Black Caucus. I got a young sister that's a fighter for justice that works in my office as my scheduler, and she's always saying to me every morning, continue to fight, Congresswoman. You're fighting for me. So that's what today is about. It's fighting for everyone. It's fighting for justice. It's fighting for you. So let me just say, women of the movement, women of civil rights, our voice, our vote, our power. Do we know the history of the A. Philip Randolph Institution? Do we know the history of how they marched and how the labor movement? Do we know what our religious leaders did, Dr. Barbara Skinner? Do we know what the message is, Melanie Campbell? Do you know what it means when we stand up for justice? It means we're standing up for you. I'm Congresswoman Joyce Beatty, chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, and I approve this message. Let's go march. Let's go for justice. Let's go let the people know our vote counts. Our vote matters, because the time is now to go get into some good trouble. Good trouble.
Yes. Thank you, Congresswoman. So we are ready. We are ready for you to lead us on this next part of this journey called Good Trouble.
Good trouble.
So we're going to ask all of our leaders who are part of today's Black Women and Allies Voting Rights Call to Action to join us as we continue that call to action towards the U.S. Senate. So, Congresswoman, all right. Yeah. And so we want to thank everyone who was able to come out with us. And so I want to thank my sister Cleola Brown with the A. Philip Randolph and Dr. Barbara Williams Skinner. If Dr. Skinner, if you could close this in prayer as we continue to line up and get ready to do what we need to do.
God of justice, righteousness, and truth. God, we call on you now in the name of the psalmist who said, when the laws of the nation fail, what will the righteous do? Well, the righteous are going to go fight. The righteous are going to go march. The righteous are going to appeal to a higher level than our Supreme Court. And when the courts of this nation fail, then we're appealing to you, oh God, the Chief Justice of the High Courts of Heaven, to rain on us, Lord, the power and the strength we need to get the Voting Rights Bill passed. Let people, the For the People Act and the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act be with us now as we go. Strengthen us together, all generations, all races, all backgrounds, working together for this democracy. We pray this in your mighty, precious name. Amen, amen, amen.
Okay, come on. Let's go. Marching for justice. Marching for justice. Marching for justice. Protect our vote. Protect our vote. Freedom vote. Freedom to 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 vote.
Freedom to vote.
I'm going to be right with you guys. We're following whose direction going. And we got staff going. We're going to see what it's like. Follow you? I'm going to give us time to line up. So we'll start right here.
Stop. Get him out of the building. Going to jail, buddy. I will be. Okay.
Yeah, oh, yeah. Are they coming out? They're coming out.
Hold on one second.
So they're going to bring our churches back over. I better go get my ID. How are you doing? Because they do insist on your ID. They do. They insist on your ID.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, as long as Rico, I'm following Rico and Todd. Okay. I can't go that way.
Are they coming out now?
Yeah, they're coming out.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Here we go.
Oh, God.
My mask is in my purse.
Danielle.
I have a mask.
How many masks do you have in your pocket?
It's in the car.
Anything in the purse?
My mask must be in the other purse.
For the Senate?
Yeah.
I have one with you. Three.
Ask Todd if he has a mask in his car. Is his car? Oh, never mind. I got one. Thank you. I got one. Yes.
I think they have some masks.
Yes. My sunglasses. Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry.
Melanie?
To your, over your other shoulder.
Put it on when we, I guess, have to. Yeah.
Underneath that tree, see it? Straight ahead. Straight ahead. Straight ahead. Down there by the street.
Oh, we've got to
Just catch them better on the corner.
90 minutes.
You spread it out and you'll catch it.
Okay. Ready? Make sure we're lined up. Are we lined up? No, it is lined.
2 by 2. Are we 2 by 2? 2 by 2.
2 by 2.
All right, 2 by 2.
And then there too. So we're all four together.
Like 4 together. Yeah. Right. Okay. 2 or 4, whatever the set looks like. But we're going to start with 4.
And then 2 by 2. All right, y'all ready? Yes. All right. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around, turn me around.
that's planted by the waters. We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved, just like a tree that's planted by the waters. We shall not be moved. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom over me, over me. And before I be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free.
And be free.
Amen. Freedom to vote. Freedom to vote.
Freedom to vote.
Freedom to vote.
Freedom to vote. Freedom to vote. Freedom to vote. Freedom to vote. Freedom to vote. Freedom to vote. Freedom to vote. Freedom to vote. Freedom to vote. Freedom to vote. Freedom to vote. Freedom to vote. Freedom to vote.
Freedom vote.
Freedom vote.
Freedom vote.
Freedom vote.
Freedom vote.
Black women.
Freedom vote.
Black women.
Freedom vote.
Black women.
Black women. Freedom vote.
Black women.
Freedom vote.
Black women.
Freedom vote.
Black women.
Freedom vote.
Black women.
Freedom vote.
Black women.
Freedom vote.
Black women.
Freedom vote.
Black women.
Freedom vote.
Black women.
Freedom vote.
Black women.
Freedom vote.
Black women.
Freedom vote.
Black women.
Freedom vote.
Black women.
Freedom vote.
Black women.
Freedom vote.
Black women.
Freedom vote.
Black women.
Freedom vote.
Black women.
Freedom vote.
Black women.
Freedom vote.
Black women.
Freedom vote.
Black women.
Freedom vote.
Black women.
Freedom vote.
Black women.
Freedom vote.
Black women.
Freedom vote.
Black women.
Freedom vote.
Black women.
Freedom vote.
Black women.
Freedom vote.
Black women.
Freedom vote.
Black women.
Freedom vote.
Black women.
Freedom vote.
Black women.
Freedom vote.
Black women.
Freedom vote.
Black women.
Freedom vote.
Black women.
Freedom vote.
Black women.
Freedom vote.
Black women.
Freedom vote.
Black women.
Freedom vote.
Black women.
Freedom vote.
Black women.
Freedom vote.
Black women.
Freedom vote.
Black women. Take over the Senate. Take over the Senate. Take over the Senate.
Black women.
Freedom vote.
Black women. Freedom vote.
Black women.
Freedom vote.
Black women.
Freedom vote.
Black women.
Security checks, right? If you have a belt on your butt, just take up with anything manly.
If you got a belt, anything in your pocket.
Anything manly that's wanted. Okay. Be careful. Funny room. If you guys can make the order,
Sure.
just make a line here.
I'm gonna make a line. We could. Actually,
Ryan.
We're going to process you in just like regular, clear you from any weapons or anything that you may have, and then you can enter the van as a member of the society. All right? Thank you very much.
Today is a historical moment. We're going to the United States Senate.
Yes.
This phrase, standing for justice, standing for voting rights. We will be follow the rules, but we're here to make sure our message is clear. Our message, our power.
Yes.
That's right, Congresswoman.
Keep them up.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
All media, anybody with a camera, you can't hang around right here recording. You'll have to go through security. If you don't do that, we're going to escort you out of the building.
All right, folks, so we're about to go through security. So y'all see a little darkness, that means it's going through the metal detector, okay?
Hey, thanks, guys. This is my first time back since 60. Appreciate that.
Okay.
We're really much more calm.
As of right now, the member of Congress is allowing escorting 30 people in. We're cutting it off 30 people. All right? If you're media, you must have your media passes to come into the building, unless you're part of the group that the member of Congress is escorting. So right now, there's only 30 people are going to be allowed in the building. Do we have an understanding? Thank you. Yes, sir, what do you say? All right, as long as you're part of the building that's coming in. You can step over here.
We have step. Yeah.
Is this you right here? Is this you right here? Your bottle and your phone?
Yeah, that's real. It still doesn't cooperate. Oh, is this real? What do you think?
White shirt. Yeah. Hey, I gotta go. What's up? Teams and us.
As I predicted, that we'll put. Can we put it through?
Get the tray, get the tray, get the tray. No, no, it's below, look around.
It's my AirPods.
Yeah, get the tray.
Whose phone is this? Okay, no, you. Okay, all right, got it. You guys have your IDs? Okay, all right. No worries.
Okay.
find mine. I just lost my ID, I think. Did you find your ID? Yeah.
You look at it in person.
Did you? Because I just need to find my congressional.
I said, well, my still hasn't come through yet, so I think it might be.
I don't know if it came through or not, or if I just lost it. My stuff hasn't come through yet.
Oh, that's right. I put it in this thing. Thank you.
You're good, thank you.
This is her baggie?
Yes, that's her jail bag. Okay. Give me 2 seconds.
This you? Camera? This is you. Me. Oh, okay, all right. Come on, boss. Shout out for a minute, T. Turn around for a minute, same thing. Cool. It's yours. Anybody's phone? Anybody missing the phone? Anybody missing the phone? Missing the phone.
That might be, let me see it.
Anybody cross Delta Land missing a phone?
Somebody's phone. Somebody's missing their phone.
It's a Delta?
Everybody got their phone.
Ah, it's a Delta.
You red missing a phone. Delta.
Everybody over here seem to have their phone.
So let's do voting rights first, then racism.
That's
We
her.
had let's stick to John Lewis. Or black voter suppression. Voters. We gotta say against. Yeah. Right. Unless it's fighting for voting rights.
Okay. All right, cool.
But do it your way. Voter suppression.
We all been there.
Ours what we're demanding. Like this is about demanding voting.
Excuse me. I needed to give you a responsibility, but I decided that you're the wrong person for me to tell. I was going to ask you and Latasha to let my people know where we're being released to, but I realized the two of y'all will be together somewhere talking about, oh shit. Did you tell? It was your job.
Oh, really? I'm just live streaming. I don't know about.
I know. That's what I'm saying. That's why I'm not leaving you with responsibility over my life.
Right. My job is to record you getting arrested. That's my job.
Yeah, but I needed somebody that was going to be responsible for me.
Oh, that ain't
And
me.
Linda. That's a shame.
That ain't me. Yeah.
That's a shame.
My son, if you watching, show up.
Maybe he's supposed to. I knew that. I said, don't leave Roland with this responsibility and her either, because the two of y'all will be together talking about, oh shit.
Because, somebody got to, somebody got to be
Did
the one.
Did somebody call for Tamika?
Right.
So no.
I mean, but I have a great video.
I said, my mother ain't trying to
I
hear
have a great video of you getting handcuffed. I mean, that'd be great video.
Roland. They said emergency contact. I put my mother. And I
Your
put next to
mother's
it,
not even-
do not call.
Oh, precisely. That's my wife. Because she leave her phone downstairs.
I said, do not call.
Now, is she still skating in the house?
Yes.
Okay. That's ABC and Roland. Oh, there's it's looking for you.
Is that our Roland?
That's our Roland.
What's happening?
Helping us to fight for black women and voting rights.
Voting rights.
You know I was going to be here?
Today we're sending a strong message. We have black leaders from across the country. Black leaders who marched with John Lewis.
Yes.
Black leaders who have taught us the meaning and the value of Black Lives Matter in their way.
Yes.
When you put us together, you get black women leaders and allies, brothers joining us. This is not about one generation, it's about all generations.
Right. Yes.
And today we are represented by all generations. Right. And that's why today is important. Look at where we stand.
Yes.
We stand in the United States Senate. Places that we couldn't work, we couldn't even clean at one time. But today, Black women say we are not waiting.
That's right.
Black women says that we're demanding our right to vote. And it starts today.
Yes.
That's right.
That's right.
That's right. Your colleagues are behind you. They want to get the shot. And it's the national news media, so you'll make sure to get the shot of the members. So if you guys step back, they can make their shot of the members of the walking down. That'd be great. Back a little bit. You guys just keep fading back and beware of your colleagues behind you.
Who's behind us spotting?
party.
Turn me around, don't let it turn me around. Turn me around, ain't gonna let go of suppression. Turn me around, I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching out to freedom land.
Black women leaders.
Be careful.
Go.
Be careful.
Back
Other side of the benches, please. This will be the arresting zone, and you'll be outside that arresting zone. Be careful, be careful, be careful.
Gotta move back. Gotta go back. Please. Thank you.
Just want to give y'all a sense of what the, again, how many Capitol Police officers they have here. Establishes perimeter. You got staffers who are all up here as well.
Let the people vote.
people vote. Let the people vote.
Let the people vote. Let the people vote. Let the people vote. Let the people vote. Let the people vote. Let the people vote. Let the people vote. Let the people vote. Let the people vote. Let the people vote.
Be careful moving through the corridors with your cameras, please. Thank you. Be careful when you're looking through your viewfinder.
This ain't our first rodeo, dude.
Is this what it's going to take? It takes this every day. We have to do this every day. We have to make a habit protest. We have to make a habit bringing our kids out, our families out, our grandmothers out, our children out.
All over the country.
Church,
Not
sports,
just here.
entertainers, all of us have got to go fight for our freedom or we're going to lose it. That's literally how close we've come.
And here we are, 40 years later. I will be back as long as I can.
This is what
I'm so
democracy
angry.
looks like.
This is what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like.
Keep fighting. Don't give up.
This is what democracy
Don't back
looks
down.
like.
This is what democracy
Keep coming.
This is what democracy looks like.
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 This is what democracy
40 years
looks
ago.
like.
And everything they gave us, they took away. Every law you can think about, they can just write up, just with a step of a pen, take our rights away.
We appreciate you not filming these security measures. Thank you.
Well, voting should be fundamental for everybody. There should be no laws. People should be able to vote and register from the day they're born and choose not to vote or not. This is all mechanisms to keep black people from voting. And if we don't vote, the country goes down. We don't vote, they don't win.
This is what democracy looks like.
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 He's got the card. Okay. All right.
All right.
I'll see you guys.
Okay. Take care. God
Love
bless
you.
Thank you. Okay. God bless you.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll be back. I'm never going to back down. Never going to stop. Fighting to my death. And my kids are going to fight. Come on! I'm not going to do it to us again. 60 years of this. All the bills, 13, 14, 15 Amendment, 1964, 65. And we're back here again? Are you kidding me? I'm madder than I've ever been. Death or vote. You're going to have to vote. And I'm telling everybody, if the black people are stopped from voting, everybody loses. It's not a black battle. It's a democracy battle. All the Democrats need to be out here. All the people of color and all the people of righteousness need to be out here. It's not a black battle. It's a moral battle. It's a moral law. They're trying to take everything from us. If we don't vote, we die. If we don't vote, Jim Crow. If we don't vote, separate bathrooms. If we don't vote, slavery.
Natasha? So if somebody's watching and they're saying, why get arrested? What's the whole point? It's fruitless. What do you tell them?
No, it's not fruitless. Anytime that black folks have stood up, right, whenever we work together, when we stand for what is right, it makes a difference. We have to recognize, we have to resist. When people are coming at our community, when people are trying to deny us our right, when people are trying to deny us our humanity, it is up to us to take a stand. That we literally have to do something. You can't let people attack your community and there's no response. So we are here. We will be here every single week. That we've got to be here because we are not going to go back. That our people have fought too long. There are folks who have died. That where I'm from in Southern Alabama on the Edmund Pettus Bridge, where our people literally gave their lives, right, and were beat, and we have blood still on the bridge because we stood for the right to vote. This place literally does not have the right to undermine our democracy. This place does not have the right to undermine our humanity. We're standing here not because we believe in a system. We believe in us, and we believe in our own agency. And we believe that in our agency, we have the right to make a decision. Any decision being made about me and my family, I have to be a part of that decision-making process. And so anybody that's watching this, every day there are decisions that are being made in this place that are impacting our children, that are impacting our families, that are impacting our community. And you have a responsibility to stand for it. You have a responsibility to stand for what it is that you believe in. So no, this isn't a matter of what is right or what should you do, or does it matter or not. Anytime I'm operating the fullness of my power, because God gave me that, not the U.S. Constitution. It is God that says that I have agency, that gave me that, because my life matters. And all the people in my community, our lives matter. And if we believe that, we have to stand on it. We have to act on it. And so that's why we're here at the Senate. And we'll continue to go to the Senate. And we'll go to the White House. And we'll go to the Congress. And we'll go to the streets. We're going to go wherever it's going to take for us to go, because we ain't going back.
Yeah, and there's no excuse for anybody. So all those pillow watchers that think they have rights, all those couch warmers that think they doing something, all those people that want to wax philosophical about whether or not black women ought to be here, right here, right now. We have a word for them. It's time for you to get up and join us. And it's not just a black thing. It is for every one of us. This democracy, I thought on one day it was about one group of people. Now I have an understanding that there's a group of people in power here that will perish. They will give up on democracy to keep power. Now, anybody that understands that, that's what time it really is. So it is not about a partisan thing. It is not about a black thing. And it's not just about my interests. This is about, some of us have bled into this. And all of a sudden, when we get the right to have some majority ruling, it's going to be a new day? I think not. We have come to Washington. I traveled here from Georgia. I'm sitting in hot D.C. to say not on my watch.
No, but they're doing this not because we're losing, family. We are winning. We are changing the political landscape in this country. We are changing what it looks like. And so that is literally why this fight is about. This fight is because people are stepping up. This fight is because people came out and voted last election. Deborah?
Yes, step on that.
So we are glad that people are here, but we're going to keep coming out. We came from Georgia and we're bringing back buses. We will continue to come out. We helped to get the vote in Georgia, to help to get 2 U.S. senators, and to help to flip the state. And we will not be deterred. So we came up from Georgia and we came to D.C. and we're going to keep coming. We're going to keep coming and we're going to keep coming. We're going to keep voting. We're going to keep coming, because this is how democracy works. This is what democracy looks like. When black women come out and stand on the front line, that's when things change. And we changed this last election, and we're going to change the next election. So our message to our congressional representatives is, if you don't represent us, someone else will, because we will vote.
Yes.
Ariel Singleton, tell us about the black youth.
Black youth
get out at numbers. We've proven that we come out in record numbers. There used to be a divide just amongst us and our ancestors and our people that were in front of us, saying that we sit down and we're too lazy. One thing that they did is they stood behind us this election season, showing us what we had to do, standing behind us, giving us the education, saying our vote matters, letting us know that we have to take it seriously, because during the pandemic we saw too much that they are falling. And so we had to realize that at some point we have to hold ourselves accountable too. And the thing is when we hold ourselves accountable, when you say that the children are the future and the youth are the future, and the youth come out and show you that they care about their future, and you decide to strip them away because it worked too well for you, that you want to keep them quiet and shut them up and shush them like they're babies, it's not fair. Today is not the day that we're going to accept this. We're not going to accept it tomorrow either. So if we have to keep coming back and keep coming back and keep coming back, like Ms. Scott said, we're going to have to do that. We have something on the table called For the People. For the people. I'm not just talking about one set of people or people behind these doors, people that have money in their pockets. I'm talking about the people, all people. So until all people included, LGBTQIA+, women, black men, black youth, kids, indigenous individuals, black and brown, students. Until that happens, we will not stop. And even when it happens, we won't stop, because we're going to hold you accountable, because you need to maintain that.
So coming from Georgia, all of us that organize in Georgia stand on the shoulders of Dr. Lowry, of course Dr. King, but Reverend James Orange was the organizer that taught us how to do what we needed to do. And we have today his very own Jemima Orange to put it down and connect all of those dots from then till now. And Jemima, you gotta drop it for this moment.
All I want everybody to understand, being the daughter of the late Reverend James Orange, who stood in a jail cell about to die for this right, is that we came this long way. He and my mother, Mrs. Cleophas Orange, they fought for this right. They thought we had it, and now we're fighting for it again. It is a tad bit overwhelming that I'm still fighting this fight that they thought they had won. But that's okay, because we are going to take it all the way, and that means we're coming to a street near you. We're not going down lightly. And so be prepared, because the legacy of all of the civil rights, all of the human rights, all of the labor rights activists, we're coming together as a collective to demand that we have the proper right to vote. Thank you.
All right, folks, that is it for us. There's been a week of action that has been taking place here in D.C. They started on Monday. Then, of course, they had action on Tuesday. We, of course, broadcast the town hall on Tuesday. If you can go to our YouTube channel, you'll actually see that. Yesterday, there were phone calls that were made to Capitol Hill, and so we made sure to be out here to live stream this as well. And so this is why we need y'all to support what we do here at Roland Martin Unfiltered. Look, we're the only black-owned outlet who was out here live streaming this entire event, all the speakers, and of course the protests inside. So please support us. Cash App, $RM Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland@RolandSMartin.com. Roland@RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. So that is it. It is almost 4 o'clock. I got to go dry off, and then I'll see you a couple of hours from now on Roland Martin Unfiltered at 6 p.m. Eastern. I'll see you then. Holla.